And now we're going to move into 2 keynote presentations related to artificial intelligence and machine learning in air cargo. So the first will be from Jeff Pan. He's the founder of aviation startup. Jeff, if you can join us on stage, please.
Hey, everybody. So I was the former chief product officer at Teleport, AirAsia's air cargo venture. And today we're going to basically go over the digital transformation journey that we had at AirAsia, putting in AI, and I'm going to go over all the learnings. There were things that went really well. There were things that went really terribly that got me yelled at by Tony Fernandez. And essentially, I want everybody to walk away with learnings so that you can actually implement these in your own organizations. So in 10 minutes, you're going to come away with 3 actionable insights that you can actually implement at your org starting on Monday when you get back to the office. And if you want to scan the QR code, you can actually have a copy of this presentation. If you want, you can make a copy and put your name on it and present it to your boss. But I'll leave it for a moment. You can go ahead and scan this. This is a copy of the presentation. So, with a quick show of hands, who here is actually using ChatGPT? Yeah, very good. Okay, yeah, Cebu Pacific, very nice. Okay, and who here is actually using the paid version? A lot less hands, okay. And who here is actually using a paid version across their company? Okay, very nice, okay. So I think that's definitely the first easy step that you can take. We had a ChatGPT corporate account for AirAsia across the org. I think there's some phenomenal benefits on that, which I'll get into later. So some quick context just so you know where I was coming from. I actually did not come from the air cargo world. I actually built and sold 3 startups prior to joining AirAsia. I built the B2B cloud program at Booking.com in Amsterdam. I built the air logistics platform at SpaceX, got yelled at by Elon Musk one time, and was also a venture builder at McKinsey prior to joining AirAsia. And so you can see that environment was a very big change from when I ended up at AirAsia. So to paint the context here, AirAsia's air cargo logistics department, Teleport, is about 700 employees. And essentially there's 2 things that are very difficult about doing digital transformation across an airline. Number one is that you're geographically dispersed. Teleport had offices across every single country in Southeast Asia and India. And most of the employees come from non-technical backgrounds. So it was obviously a little bit of a challenge and a little bit of a learning curve for me to sort of figure out how to get them to change their behavior. So I'll go over some of the things that did not work. So I hope nobody in this room makes these following mistakes. So number one is we experiment with a lot of different learning platforms. I think I can conclusively say that video training does not work. We spent a lot of time putting in video trainings that were external trainers, internal trainers, and I would watch and track the retention rates on video training. They do not work. And just for context, I think every single internal compliance video that I've ever had to take for every company, I never did them. One of my interns just logged in on my account and completed them for me, right? We also experimented between external trainers and internal trainers, and I think I can also conclusively say that internal trainers, even if it's a junior employee in your organization, are far more impactful than external trainers. Again, you can use your internal trainers to sort of create a little bit more context. So we definitely had infinitely more success with internal trainers than external trainers, and we had 0 success with videos. People simply just do not like watching videos. Another thing, so this, nobody again makes this mistake, but when you start rolling out ChatGPT across your organization, obviously there's tremendous benefits, but the one thing that you do want to be careful on, and again, if you're not sure what this means, feel free to find me during the break, but you want to track your API calls, and you basically just want to make sure your keys are labeled to a specific person. When they're unlabeled, your costs tend to spiral very out of control very quickly. So don't forget to label your API keys, otherwise you're going to walk away with a $10,000 bill here or there. So now let's actually go over what worked, right? And again, this was something on a digital transformation across all of Teleport, across 700 employees, across all the different countries. So the number one thing that worked was in-person trainings. and we had the undivided attention of everybody in the room. And I think I want to come away with 3 learnings on exactly how we implemented that. So number 1 is we set up a dedicated learning team. So basically, I had a dedicated team, and their only job was to coordinate the trainings, coordinate the trainers, and coordinate the content. There's a surprisingly large amount of admin when you're sort of scheduling these digital transformation journeys. That was definitely the key. The number 2 was definitely have junior training assistants in the room. One of the things that we found out in the early days at AirAsia was that there would always be, if you can imagine a group of 30 guys from the warehouse, there was always 1 or 2 folks that kind of stumbled. They couldn't figure out how to log in. They maybe had a different laptop that they couldn't find the button. And essentially what you want to do is you want to have a lot of junior employees sitting in the room so they can quickly go over, help them. Otherwise, those little 2 to 3 minute interruptions basically double the time that it takes for these trainings to go through. And number 3, it's leadership driven. So the CEO of Teleport and we actually taught many of the classes in the early days, and we were sending a signal to all the junior employees that this was a priority for us, and this was top of mind. So you were sending a message to your employees that this is important, but definitely in person. And again, it's a lot of work. I had to fly to every single country in Southeast Asia and do a 2-day workshop just to get everybody on board. Of course, with the tech team, all of that you can do 50 people in 2 hours, but with the airport warehouse operations, you have to be on the ground in person to have their undivided attention. The other thing that worked really well was as we started scaling, obviously Pete and I could not teach all the classes ourselves. We essentially started to find junior employees that took over as the trainings. And a couple interesting things happened that were unexpected. So number one, it was cheaper, right? Obviously hiring external trainers are quite expensive, but internal trainers were actually very good. They were able to present problems in the context on how we had different logistics problems and how we had specific use cases for AI for specific workflows. But number 2, it actually also improved their confidence as well. What I saw was these junior employees that ended up becoming the junior trainers, they started breaking down the data silos across the different organizations because a lot of these trainings were done cross-department, cross-functional, and also their presentation skills actually became phenomenal. And it wasn't a coincidence that the early junior trainers ended up having very high career velocities. So, and essentially what we did was on most of our AI tools is we diligently tracked the productivity metrics. We were tracking who was using them, we were tracking who was actually most active, and essentially we could also spot which departments were lagging behind, which countries were lagging behind. So another thing is once you implement things across different tech, different AI tools, definitely make sure that you're keeping an eye on these productivity metrics to see that they're following through. Oh, here's a great hack that we did. So ChatGPT, the license is about $20 per person. That's not a lot of money, but when you scale that across 700 employees times 20, it comes out to about $168,000 per year. There's a great hack if you know how to use a password manager in your organization, but basically you can drive that $168,000 cost down to $20 per month. So it's a great cost savings measure. We actually did this across all of our AI tools to drive down the license costs. Again, if you're unsure what this means, just maybe find me during the break. If there's anything that we loved at AirAsia, it was saving money on these things. So let's go over some very specific use cases on how AI impacted the way that we work. So number 1 was because we had a shared ChatGPT account, one of the unexpected surprises was that all of our ChatGPT histories were actually visible across the entire company. And it was quite funny because, for example, I have very specific ways about the ways that I do my prompts. I have very specific workflows that I put into ChatGPT. And what was really interesting is I started seeing other junior employees across other countries actually doing their prompts in the same way, adjusting the way that they're doing workflows, even though I didn't work closely with them. So when you have this data visibility in one single account, one of the surprising effects is that it spreads like a wildfire on best practices across the organization. Another thing that we did is we recorded all of our video calls. So every single video call at AirAsia at Teleport is actually on a platform called Grain. There's a lot of tools like this. The reason that I like Grain specifically was that it was all indexed. In other words, every single video call you could actually index. And the beauty of this was that my meeting time definitely got cut down by half, right? Because there were a lot of meetings that I didn't have to sit through. I could very quickly watch the AI-generated summary with the key highlights and the key takeaways after that. So I had a lot less meetings as a result. There was a funny, and again, the tool itself isn't that important. I think with Grain, it was really great. But what we really loved about it was that all the text was transcribed, so we knew exactly what was happening. We could highlight things. For interviews, it was great because we didn't, all three of us need to be in an interview. We could actually just watch the recording of that. Now, one of the other funny byproducts of this is that a junior employee pointed out using an AI tool that me and Pete were saying the word fuck a lot in meetings. And if you could just imagine the reporting line, it goes Tony Fernandez, Pete, and then me. Tony curses a lot, Pete curses even more, and then obviously I found myself cursing a lot. And essentially what we started doing was we made a very conscious decision because we had to set an example to curse less in meetings. And essentially over time, we ended up seeing our F words per week decrease significantly. And again, this was pointed out by a junior employee. So it was one of the really great things about Grain that I loved. So we were able to quickly search keywords across every single historical meeting that we had at AirAsia. One of the most impactful things was actually integrating ChatGPT into our spreadsheets. So if you use Microsoft Excel or if you use Google Sheets, there's actually a lot of really great integrations where you can actually generate ChatGPT data. So in this example, you can actually just generate a quick table on ChatGPT, right? So instead of going onto a website, doing the research and doing that. Another really great tool was on network planning analysis, on different functions that are very spreadsheet heavy, where you can simply upload it into ChatGPT, you work with it, and essentially it generates and cuts down a lot of time on these things. Another really fun use case was something called HS codes. So obviously, we worked with a lot of e-commerce marketplaces at AirAsia and Teleport. In the old days, you used to have to get a spreadsheet from one of your e-commerce marketplaces, and it has all the product descriptions. And essentially, you have to then convert it into an HS code. Not too long ago, that actually had to be done by a book, where you would have to go through line by line and actually convert it into a code. And eventually, somebody put up on my table that we should actually sign up for a third-party API service, and it was going to cost something about $100,000 per year for the license. And then obviously, as part of the procurement process, I had to then go out and sort of research the different alternatives. And just for fun, I actually programmed something in ChatGPT to convert the HS codes, just to more or less go into the negotiation with leverage. It turned out to be not only better, but cheaper by a factor of 1,000, right? So this is a very specific example of ChatGPT and OpenAI being used for a very specific use case in air cargo logistics. So hopefully hopefully you guys learned a thing or two. Just to recap, definitely sign up for a company ChatGPT account. Don't forget to label your API keys. Definitely use a password manager so you can cut the cost down by a factor of 1,000. And definitely set up an internal learning team on all of these things. If you have any questions, feel free to find me during the break. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with OpenAI.